harder. Make me lose myself. Make me harder. That's your last song. Cuba chat. Hey, friends and family, everybody else in the chat. How's everybody doing? All right. So, guys, I have slept and now I am awake. So, we are going to be moving right along into the reading of The Guardian. For those of you who have been with me, we have started reading this book a few days ago. And this book is rather interesting, very easy to understand, very easy to follow, with the lovely Julie, one of the characters in the book, being a widow, and now she is contemplating whether or not she should yield to the advances of her dead husband's best friend. It's been a few years since her husband had passed away, and she feels quite comfortable now entering into a romance, but that is the dilemma with which she's faced, whether or not she should date Mike, or it will ruin their friendship. Who knows? I always make it a rule of thumb not to date people with whom I am very close in friendship, because I just think that it will cause a damper on the friendship. The friendship will be significantly affected if you start to inject romance. And I say inject not to use the word loosely, but if you inject romance into the mix, it usually alters the dynamic of the relationship, not for the benefit of anybody. So it's either that you're going to decide to be romantic and then deal with the consequences of a failed romance, or you're going to maintain your friendship and not injure that friendship with a romance. That's just me. I know for a lot of people, they may say, oh, it has worked for them. They were able to convert a friendship into a romance that blossomed and bore beautiful fruits. I have never been that lucky, maybe because I've never taken that chance. Because to me, that is a chance that I I don't think is worth taking. If you are my friend and you are of the opposite sex and you are my friend, I want to maintain that friendship without contaminating, yes, without contaminating the friendship with romance. That is just me. I'm sure there are others out there who might say, well, if we can be great friends, we can be great lovers. But that is not necessarily the truth, because you could have a friendship with a person for years and the friendship remains wholesome and pure. But the moment you inject romance into the mix, the whole dynamic of the relationship changes. And before you know it, you all could be living like cats and dogs. Who wants that? I'd rather have a pure friendship with somebody than an impure romantic encounter with that same person. So roll on in, guys. Come on in. We're not going to do too much of the talking. We're not going to do too much of the talking. What we're going to do is more reading and less talking. They say reading maketh a man, and I'm wondering how comes I haven't become a man yet. I'm crazy. But anywho, we are going to be moving right along, my dear people. I see, I see this person, AP, AP, the Power Girls Halloween. AP, how are you? Happy, what is it today? A Monday? Okay, happy Monday to you. I hope you're having a great Monday afternoon or Monday evening or Monday morning, whatever it is, depending on where you are. Oh, hold on there a second, guys. I must tend to this serious matter here. Hold on there a second, guys. I must tend to this serious matter here. Hold on there a second, guys. I must tend to this serious matter here. Okay, now here I am, gentle people. I just took care of that. So here I am. We are going to move on to chapter 3 of this book called The Guardian, written by Nicholas Sparks, and this one is a New York's bestseller. So we are going to move right along without any much more talking. Let's get on with it. I just need a little bit more light here. Though Andrea Radley had earned her cosmetology license a year ago and had been working for Mabel for 9 months, she wasn't the best of employees. Not only did she have a tendency to take personal days without warning, usually without bothering to call, but on the days she did manage to arrive at work, she was rarely punctual. Nor was she particularly adept at styling and cutting hair, at least according to the directions her customers gave her. It didn't make a difference if her customers brought in a picture or explained slowly and clearly exactly what they wanted. Andrea cut everyone's hair exactly the same way. Not that it mattered. Andrea already had nearly the same number of clients that Julie had, though, not surprisingly, every one of them was a man. Andrea was 23, a long-legged blonde with a perpetual tan, who looked as if she had come straight from the beaches of California rather than the small mountain town of Boone, North Carolina, where she had been raised. She did her best to dress the part, too. No matter how cold the weather, she wore miniskirts to the salon. In the summer, she augmented that with skimpy altar tops. In the winter, tall leather boots. She called every client sugar, battered her long mascara-ended lashes, and chewed gum incessantly. Julie and Mabel used to giggle at the dreamy looks men gave Andrea as they stared at her reflection in the mirror. Andrea, they thought, could have accidentally shaved the client's head and still kept him coming back for more. Despite her outward appearance, Andrea was a bit naive about men. Oh, she thought she knew what men wanted, and for the most part, she was right about that. What Andrea didn't understand was how to keep a man afterwards. It never occurred to her that her appearance might attract a certain type of man at the expense of another. Andrea had no trouble getting dates with tattooed men who drove Harleys, or drunks who hung out at the Clipper, or guys on parole, but she was never able to get a date with men who had steady jobs. At least that's what she told herself when she was in one of her self-pitying moods. In reality, Andrea did get asked out regularly by reliable working men, but she seemed to lose interest in them quickly, then promptly forget they'd even asked. In the past 3 months, she had been out with 7 different men, 31 tattoos, 6 Harleys, 2 parole violations, and 0 jobs. And right now, she was feeling a little sorry for herself. On Saturday, she had had to pay for dinner and the movie because her date didn't have any money. But had he called her this morning? No, of course not. He wouldn't think of calling her today. Her dates never called unless they needed money or were feeling a little lonely, as so many of them liked to put it. We're going to change Andrea's name to Yamela. Good evening, Joe. How are you doing, my sugar? Good to see you, Jojo. I hope you're having a great Monday. Oh my God, Joseph. It's Monday evening and we are reading before we knock it off in the night. All right, Jojo? So let us move right along. But Richard had called the shop this morning asking for Julie. Even worse, Julie probably didn't have to buy him dinner to get him to do it. Why, she wondered, did Julie get all the good guys? It wasn't as if she was dressed well. Half the time, she looked downright plain. What with her jeans and baggy sweaters, and, let's be frank here, ugly shoes. She didn't exactly go out of the way to flatter her figure. Her nails weren't manicured, and she wasn't tan at all, except in summer, and everyone could do that. So why had Richard been so taken with Julie? They had both been here when Richard walked into the salon for a haircut last week. They both had a break in their appointments, and they both looked up and said hi at the same time. But Richard had asked Julie to cut his hair instead of her, and somehow that had led to a date. Andrea frowned, just thinking about it. Ouch! Brought back to the present by the yelp, Andrea glanced at her customer's reflection in the mirror. He was a lawyer in his early 30s. He was also rubbing his head. Andrea pulled her hands back. What happened, sugar? You jabbed my head with the scissors. Oh my God. Andrea is so busy thinking about what kind of men Julie been getting. You see how bad mine work? She's so busy thinking about the kind of men that Julie attracts that she jabs her customer with the scissors, not even realizing it. Liz, what's up, sis? How are you doing? So good to see you. Happy Monday evening to you, my dear. I am here. I am up and we are reading. I did? Yeah, it hurt. Andrea's lashes fluttered. I'm sorry, sugar. I didn't mean to hurt you. You're not mad at me, are you? No, not really, he said finally, pulling his hand away. Looking in the mirror again, he studied the job she was doing. Don't you think my hair looks a little lopsided? Where? Right here. He pointed with his finger. You cut this sideburn way too short. Andrea blinked twice, then slowly tilted her head from one side to the other. I think the mirror is crooked. The mirror? He repeated. She put one hand on his shoulder and smiled. Well, I think you look handsome, sugar. You do? Across the room, near the window, Mabel looked up from her magazine. The man, she noticed, was practically melting into the chair. She shook her head as Andrea started cutting again. After a moment, feeling reassured, the man sat up a little straighter. Listen, I've got tickets to see Faith Hill in Raleigh in a couple of weeks. I've got tickets to see Faith Hill in Raleigh in a couple of weeks, he said. I was just wondering if you'd like to go. Unfortunately, Andrea's mind was back on Richard and Julie again. Mabel had told her that they'd gone to the Slocum house. The Slocum house? She knew, though she had never been there before, that the Slocum house was a fancy restaurant, the kind of place where there were candles on the table, and they hung your coat for you if you needed it in its own special room. You know what I mean? Its own special room. And there were cloth tablecloths. Not those cheap plastic ones with the red and white checkerboard pattern. Her dates had never taken her to a place like that. They probably couldn't even afford to take her to a place like that. Or maybe they couldn't even find places like that. You see, are the kind of people where you attract, the kind of people you are exposed to, and the kind of people that you attract. Because you could be well dressed. You could be always well dressed, always meticulous, but you are always like at places where drunks and other low-life people hang out. Those are the people you're going to see, and those are the people to whom you're going to be attracted, because those are the people you see. Your first attraction comes through the eyes. If you say you work in an upscale business district, the people you're going to run across in the restaurants and the little pubs and whatever other business places that are around those places are going to be the people in that high-end business district. Lawyers and maybe doctors and, people of some kind of stature. On the other hand, if you work in a district that is filled with dollar stores and thrifty stores, those are the people you're going to see. And those are the people to whom you're going to be attracted. So, as I think it was Miss Kitty or Steve Harvey, somebody who had said that you have to bring yourself to the places where the people you would like to attract hang out. You can't keep visiting the places where the people you don't desire hang out and expect that they're not going to be attracted to you and that you might not end up falling for them, for somebody in that category. Okay? So just a word to the wise, and it should be sufficient. Let us continue reading. Her dates had never taken her to a place like that. They probably couldn't even find a place like that. I'm sorry, but I can't, she answered automatically. Knowing Richard, though of course she didn't know Richard at all, he had probably sent flowers too. Maybe even roses, red roses. In her mind, she could see it clearly. Why did Julie get all the good ones? Oh, man. The way he said it brought Andrea back again. Excuse me? She asked. Nothing. I just said, oh. Andrea had no idea what he was talking about. When in doubt, she thought, smile. And she did. After a moment, the man began melting again. In the corner, Mabel stifled a laugh. Mabel saw Julie Mabel saw Julie come through the door a minute after Singer had entered. She was about to say hello when Andrea spoke up. "Richard called," Andrea said, not bothering to hide her disgust. She was filing her perfectly manicured nails with vigor, as if trying to scrape a bug off the tips. "He did?" Julie asked. "What did he want?" "I didn't even bother to ask," Andrea snapped. "I'm not your secretary, you know." Mabel shook her head, as if telling Julie not to worry about it. At 63, Mabel was one of Julie's closest friends. That she had been Jim's aunt was almost beside the fact. Mabel had given Julie a job and a place to stay 11 years earlier, and Julie would never forget that. But 11 years was long enough for Julie to know she would have enjoyed Mabel's company had none of those things happened. It didn't matter to Julie that Mabel was a little eccentric, to put it mildly. In her time here, Julie had learned that practically everyone in town had rather colorful aspects to their personalities. But Mabel got the capital E in eccentric, especially in this small, conservative southern town. And it wasn't simply because she had a couple of harmless quirks. Mabel was different compared to others in town, and she, along with everyone else, knew it. Despite three proposals, she had never been married, and this alone disqualified her from the various clubs and groups of people of her own age. But even if you ignored her other idiosyncrasies, the fact that she drove a moped into the salon unless it was raining, favored clothing with polka dots, and viewed her Elvis collectibles as fine art, Mabel could still be regarded as positively odd for something she had done over a quarter century ago. When she was 36, after living in Swansboro her entire life, she moved away without telling anyone where she was going or even that she was leaving at all. For the next 8 years, she sent postcards to her family and friends from around the world. Ayers Rock in Australia, Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa, the Fjords in Norway, Hong Kong Harbor, the Wawel in Poland. When she finally returned to Swansboro, showing up as unexpectedly as she had left in the first place, she took up right where she had left off, moving back into the same house and going to work in the salon again. No one knew why she did it or where she got the money to travel or buy the shop a year later, nor did she ever answer questions about it when asked. "It's a mystery," she'd say with a wink. And this only added to the whispered and the speculations of the townspeople, not only that Mabel's past was a bit unsavory, but that she had more than a couple of broken cups in the china cabinet. You all know what that means, right? Mabel didn't care what people thought, and to Julie, this was part of her charm. Mabel dressed the way she wanted, associated with whomever she wanted, and did the things she wanted. More than once, Julie wondered whether Mabel's quirks were real or whether she simply played them up to keep people wondering about her. Either way, Julie adored everything about Mabel, even her tendency to pry. So how did it go with Richard?" Mabel asked. "Well, to be honest, I was a little worried about you the whole time," Julie said. "I thought you might pull a neck muscle if you craned your neck any further trying to listen in." Mabel, I saw Mabel nosy. Mabel is so nosy. She's prying her neck to listen in into the conversation between Julie and Richard. AG is in the place. AG, bless up a nice clean self. How are you doing, my love? Good to see you. But did see you this morning, AG. I remember I did see you this morning. Not that you're unforgettable, because you're definitely not. It's just that minutes, you know what I mean. But let us continue. Oh, don't worry about that, Mabel said. A little Tylenol and I was good as new the next day. But stop changing the subject. Did it go okay or not? It went well, considering I just met him. From where I was sitting, it almost looked like he knew you from somewhere. Why do you say that? I don't know. His expression, I guess, or maybe it was the way he kept staring at you all night. For a second there, I thought his eyes were attached to you by an invisible string. It wasn't that obvious, was it? Honey, it looked like a sailor on shore leave watching a girly show. Julie laughed as she slipped into her smock. I guess I must have dazzled him. I suppose. What just what, Joe? Oh, if you see your man and don't remember Trev. Let me tell you something, Joe. You see when me work 3 nights in a row and me get off on a Monday morning, trust me, I don't know what I see or what I hear. So if me see AG this morning, you better forgive me. You better forgive me. But it's just one of those things, my love. Just one of those things. Yeah. But yes, yes. But that don't mean something can't forget. That don't mean something can't forget him, Joseph. Trust and believe me. Sometimes I'll forget myself. Oh my God, Joseph, you're not easy. Let us continue. Something in her tone made Julie look up. What? You didn't like him? I'm not saying that. I haven't even met him yet, remember? I was out when he came into the shop, and you didn't exactly introduce us on Saturday. You were too busy staring back. Mabel winked. And besides, I'm an old romantic at heart. As long as a man listens and is interested in what you say, his appearance isn't all that important. You didn't think he was good looking? Oh, you know me. I'm more partial to the guys who come in looking for Andrea. I think tattoos that cover the arms are sexy. Julie laughed. Don't let Andrea hear you say that. She might get offended. No, she won't. Unless I drew pictures. She wouldn't know who we were talking about. Just then, the door swung open and a woman stepped in. Julie's first appointment for the day. Mabel's appointment, another woman, followed her a few moments later. I know you believe me. I know you believe me, Jojo. Yeah, sometimes I remember myself on a Monday morning. Let's continue. So are you going to go out with him again? Mabel asked. I don't know if he'll ask, but I probably would. Do you want him to? Yeah, she admitted. I think I do. Mabel's eyes twinkled. Well, what's your sweetie Bob going to say? He'll be heartbroken, won't he? If he calls again, maybe I'll just tell him you are interested. Oh, please do. I need some help with my taxes. Unfortunately, though, he might think I'm a little too adventurous for him. She paused. So how'd Mike take it? Oh my God, Julie seems to have the men all lined up. She don't know what to do. She don't know if she should take Richard, if she should get serious with Mike. She don't know. I don't know. Which one you all think she should take? I think she should go with Richard. That's my view. I think she should go with Richard. But only because Mike seems to be a good guy, a good homey guy. He'd never been married and stuff. You know, he seems like a good guy. But the fact that they had been friends for so long and he had been friends with her dead husband makes me want to say she shouldn't date Mike. That's just me. From her seat by the window, Mabel had seen them talking. Julie shrugged. She had known Mabel would ask. Okay. He's a good guy, you know. Yeah, he is. Mabel didn't press any further, knowing it wouldn't do any good. She had already tried a few times without results. But in her mind, it was a shame that things hadn't worked out between them so far. Mike and Julie, she thought, would make a great couple. And despite what either of them imagined, she was sure that Jim wouldn't have minded it at all. Now, Jim was Julie's dead husband. Mabel is thinking that Jim would be okay if Julie dated Mike, his best friend. Well, I got different thoughts on it. She should know, after all, she was his aunt. As the morning sun fell on early season heatwave, Mike's wrench got stuck on a bolt in the inner reaches of the engine. Struggling to free it, he pulled a little too hard, nicking the back of his hand. After disinfecting the wound and putting on a bandage, he tried to free the wrench a second time with exactly the same result. Cursing to himself, he pushed away from the car in frustration and stared at it, his expression cold, as if trying to intimidate the car into doing what he wanted. All morning long, he had made one stupid mistake after another on a repair that was second nature to him. And now he couldn't even get the stupid wrench free. Now that it was entirely his fault, of course, if anything, Mike thought it was Julie's fault. Oh Lord. How was he supposed to concentrate on his work when he couldn't stop thinking about her date with Richard? Oh, you see? So Mike is not concentrating on his work because he is busy focusing on the thought that Julie is going out with Richard instead of with him. Her nice date, her fun date. What, he wondered, had been so nice about it? And what had she meant for fun? Aha! Only one way to find out, he knew, though he dreaded the very thought of it. But what other choice did he have? It wasn't as if Julie had been all that forthcoming with him, and he couldn't exactly head over to the salon and ask Mabel in person. Not with Julie standing right there. That left Henry as his only option. Henry was his brother. They work together at the garage. Mike does the work on the cars, and Henry does the paperwork. He handles the paperwork and the money and all that. Henry, the good, kind older brother. Yeah, right, Mike thought. Henry could have told him earlier, but no, he had to set him up. Henry knew exactly what he was doing when he left the conversation hanging like that. He wanted Mike to come begging for information, to come crawling, to toss a few zingers. Yeah, well, not this time, pal, Mike decided. Not this time. Mike approached the car again and began working his hand towards the wrench. Still stuck. Looking over his shoulder, he wondered if using a screwdriver would give him the leverage he needed to pry the wrench free. Deciding to give it a try, he reached in. But just when he had it where he needed to be, he heard Julie's voice again, and the screwdriver slipped from his grip. It was nice, Julie had said. We had fun. As he reached for the screwdriver, it slid further, rattling downwards like a pachinko ball, and finally vanishing from sight. He leaned over, and despite the fact that he knew everything about this particular engine, he had no idea where the wrench had gone. Mike stared, blinking back his disbelief. Great, he thought, just great. The wrench is stuck. The screwdriver was absorbed in a mechanical black hole, and I'm not getting a single thing done here. I've been working for an hour, and if it keeps going like this, I'm going to have to place a new order with Blaine Sutter the Snap-on tool representative. He had to talk to Henry. It was the only way he could put this behind him. Crap. Mike reached for a rag and began wiping his hands on his way towards the garage, hating the fact that it had come to this and trying to figure out the best way to ask. The challenge, he knew, was to not let Henry know why he was so interested. It would be best if the topic came up naturally, or Henry would end up rubbing his nose in it. His brother lived for moments like this. He had probably spent the whole morning preparing zingers. With people like that, there was only one thing to do, and that was to use the fine art of deception. After taking a moment to formulate his plan, Mike poked his head into Henry's office. Henry was sitting behind his cluttered desk, placing an order on the phone. Directly in front of him was a packet of miniature donuts, sitting next to a can of Pepsi. Henry always kept a stash of junk food hidden in his drawer. To make up for the healthy lunches Emma made him, Henry waved him in, and Mike took a seat in the chair across from the desk as he hung up. That was the dealer down in Jacksonville, Henry said. They won't have the switch you need for the Volvo for another week. Remind me to call Evelyn, will you? Sure, Mike said. So what's on your mind, little brother? Of course, Henry already knew what Mike needed to talk about. The look on his brother's face made the topic plain, and though he could not have come straight out with what Mabel had told him, he didn't. There was something about seeing Mike squirm that always left him feeling gleeful for the rest of the day. Well, Mike said, I was thinking. He trailed off. Yes, Henry asked. Well, I was thinking that maybe I should start going to church with you and the family again. Oh, Lord. Henry brought his finger to his chin, thinking, that's an original way to begin. Won't do you any good, but it's definitely original. What do you mean by it won't do him any good? Oh, really? He said, hiding his smile. Yeah, I haven't been in a while, but it would be good for me. Henry nodded. You might be right. You want to meet there, or do you want us to pick you up? Mike shifted in his seat. Before we get to that, I just want to know what the new reverend is like. I mean, do people like what he says in his sermons? Do they talk about it after the services? Well, sometimes, but people do talk. After church, I mean. Sure. But you'd find out this Sunday. We go at 9. 9? Yes, 9. Okay, good. Mike nodded, pausing for a moment. Well, just for example, what did people say after last Sunday? Oh, well, let's see. Henry tapped his finger in feigned concentration. Come to think of it, I don't really know. I was talking to Mabel. Bingo, Mike thought, smiling inwardly, just like I planned. I am a master of deception. Mabel, huh? He said. Mike reached for the donuts. Taking a bite, he waved a hand and leaned back in his chair, talking as he chewed. Yeah, usually she goes at the earlier service, but I guess she was running late. We talked for a good long time, and boy, I tell you, did she tell me some interesting stuff. He took a moment to look upward, began counting the little holes in the ceiling tiles for effect, then rocked his seat forward again, shaking his head. But you don't want to hear about that. We were just talking about Julie's date, and you have already told me you are not interested. So should we pick her up on Sunday as well? Oh, Mike is about to take it to the preacher. He about to take it to the church. Realizing his plan had just gone up in smoke, Mike just sat there, trying vainly to recover. Oh, well. Henry glanced his way, challenge lighting in his eyes. Unless, of course, you have changed your mind. Mike paled. Ah, ah. And Henry laughed. He had had his fun, and as much as he had enjoyed it, he knew it was time to stop. Answer me a question, Mike, he said, leaning forward. Why do you keep pretending you don't want to go out with Julie? Mike blinked. We're just friends, he said, the answer coming automatically. Henry ignored his answer. Is it just me, or is it because of Jim? When Mike didn't respond, Henry put down the donut. He has been gone for a long time now. It's not like you are trying to steal his wife. Then why have you been acting like I shouldn't go out with her? Like last summer on the boat. Y'all remember when they were out on the boat last summer? Yeah, they were talking about how Julie was looking at Mike, yeah, with his arms all muscular and ready to hold her together. And he was just a little bit shy. Let's see. Because she needed time, Mike. You know that. She wasn't ready to start seeing people last year or even 6 months ago. But she's ready now. Put on this spot, Mike wasn't sure what to say, nor did he understand how Henry seemed to know so much. It's not that easy, he finally answered. Of course it's not easy. Do you think that asking Emma out the first time was easy for me? There were a lot of guys who wanted to go out with her, but I figured the worst that could happen was that she would say no. Come on, Emma. Emma told me she had eyes for you even before you asked her out. You two were meant for each other. But I didn't know that. Not then, anyway. All I knew was that I had to give it a shot. Mike met Henry's eyes, but she wasn't married to your best friend. No, Henry said, she wasn't. But then we weren't friends beforehand, like you and Julie either. That's what makes it so hard. What if things changed between us? They already are changing, little brother. Not really. Sure they are, he said. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had to ask me about the date, would you? Julie would have told you herself. She told you about Bob, didn't she? Mike did not answer to that, but when he left the office a minute later, he knew that his older brother was right. You see how awkward that is? It is so awkward. He cannot ask Julie out because he is thinking about his friendship with her dead husband. That has to be quite difficult for him. And that would be difficult for anybody who values loyalty, because he thinks he wants to remain loyal to his dead friend Bob, that he don't want to date Bob's widow. But somebody's gonna date her. Somebody is preparing to. Richard is going to sweep her right from under your nose, Mike. Chapter 4. Let's read chapter 4. Singer's head. Now we know Singer. Singer is Julie's dog. Singer's head rose from the blanket as soon as Richard entered the salon, and though he growled, the sound was muted, as if he thought Julie might scold him again. Hey, sugar. Here for another haircut? Andrea asked, smiling. He was wearing jeans, and his denim shirt was unbuttoned at the top, leaving just enough room to see the curly hairs on his chest. And those eyes. I'll be done here in a couple of minutes. Richard shook his head. No, thank you, he said. Is Julie around? Andrea's smile faded. She snapped her chewing gum and nodded towards the rear of the salon. Yeah, she's here, she said. pouting. She's in the back. Mabel had heard the bell on the door. Mabel had heard the bell on the door jiggle, and she stepped out from behind the partition. Hold on, the guys. May I get one important phone call? Okay, guys. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. But I had to do that. Oh, Richard, right? How are you? She inquired. Richard brought his hands together in front of him. He recognized her from the other night in the restaurant, and though her expression seemed pleasant enough, he knew she was still evaluating him. Small towns were the same everywhere he had been. Fine, ma'am. Thanks. How are you? Good. Julie will be out in a minute. She's setting someone up under the hairdryer, but I'll tell her you are here. Thank you. Though he didn't turn towards her, Richard knew that Andrea was still watching him. A knockout, that's what most people would say about her, but he wasn't all that impressed. She struck him as a forced beauty, as if she was trying too hard. He liked women who looked wholesome, the way Julie did. Richard? Julie asked a moment later. She smiled at him, struck again by his good looks. Singer stood from the blanket and nearly followed her, but she held up her hand to stop him. He froze and stopped growling. Hey there, Richard answered. I guess he's getting used to me, huh? Julie glanced towards Singer. Him? Oh, we had a talk. I think he's fine now. A talk? He gets jealous. Jealous? She shrugged. You'd have to live with him to understand. Richard raised an eyebrow, but he let the comment pass. So what are you doing here? She asked. I thought I'd see how you were doing. Oh, I'm fine, but I'm kind of busy right now. I've been swamped all morning. Why aren't you at work? Well, I am. Kind of, anyway. Being a consultant gives me a bit of freedom, and I decided to pop into town. Just to see me? I couldn't think of anything I'd rather do. She smiled. I had a good time on Saturday night, she offered. So did I. Richard's eyes darted from Mabel to Andrea, and though they both appeared to be occupied with other things, he knew they were listening. Do you think you could take a quick break so we could talk outside? I called earlier, but you weren't in. I'd love to, but I've got someone in the back. It won't take long. Julie hesitated, glanced towards the clock. I promise, Richard said. I know you are working. A quick estimate said she had maybe a few minutes. I guess that's okay, she said, but it can't be long. Otherwise, I'll have to spend the rest of the day trying to fix the color, and you are going to find yourself in the dog's house. Give me a second to check on her, though, okay? Sure. Julie went to see her customer again. The woman was having highlights put in, and her head was covered in a perforated plastic cap. Assorted strands of hair sticking through the holes in the cap were coated in purple slime. Julie checked the color, turned the dryer on low, buying an extra couple of minutes, and went out front again. All right, said Julie, walking towards the door. I'm ready. Richard followed her outside. The door swung shut behind them, the bell jiggling again. So, what did you want to talk about? Richard shrugged. Nothing important, really. I just wanted to have you all to myself for a minute. You are kidding me. Not at all. But why? Gee, he said, playing innocent. I'm not really sure. I found your cord, she said. You didn't have to do that. I know I didn't, but I wanted to. Is that why you called the salon this morning? To see if I got it? No, I just wanted to hear your voice. Good memories, you know. All righty then. I was charmed. Julie looked up at him, thinking, flattery is such a nice way to start the day. After a moment, Richard began to tug at his watch band. But actually, besides wanting to see you, there is another reason I came by. Oh, I get it. Now that I'm all buttered up, the truth comes out, huh? He laughed. Sort of. The truth is, I wanted to see if you'd like to go out again this Saturday. Saturday, Julie remembered, was a pang, was supposed to be dinner at Emma's with Henry and Mike. I'd love to, but I can't. A couple of friends invited me over to their house. Can we go on Friday instead? Or maybe sometime during the week? Richard shook his head. I wish I could, but I'm going to Cleveland this evening and I won't be back until Saturday. And I just found out today that I might be out of town again the following weekend. It's not set in stone, but odds are I'd have to go. He paused. Are you sure you can't make it? I really can't, she said, playing out the words, wishing she didn't have to say them. They are really good friends. I can't blow them off at the last minute. For an instant, an unreadable expression crossed Richard's face, but just as quickly as it had come, it was gone. Okay, he said. I'm sorry, she said again, hoping he knew she meant it. Don't worry about it. He seemed to look into the distance before focusing on Julie again. Look, these things do happen. It's no big deal. But you won't mind if I give you a call in a couple of weeks, would you? When I get back, I mean. Maybe we could arrange something else. A couple of weeks? Well, hold on, Julie said. You could always come to the dinner with me. I'm sure my friends wouldn't mind. Oh my God, what is Julie doing? Richard shook his head. No, they are your friends, and I'm not real good at meeting new people. I never have been. Shy, I guess, and I didn't want you to have to change your plans. He smiled before nodding towards the salon. Listen, you made me promise not to keep you, and I'm the kind of guy who keeps his word. Besides, I've got to get back to work now. He smiled again. You look great, by the way. As he turned to leave, and before she could stop herself, Julie called out, Wait! Richard stopped. Yes? They'd understand. They'd understand, wouldn't they? She thought. Well, if you are not going to be in town next week, maybe I can change my plans. I'll talk to Emma. I'm sure she won't mind. I don't want you to have to break your date. It's not that big of a deal. We get together all the time. You're sure? He asked. Yeah, I'm sure. He met her eyes, staring as if he were seeing her for the first time. That's great, he said. And before she realized what was happening, he leaned in and kissed her. Oh my God! Not hard, not too long, but a kiss nonetheless. Thank you, he murmured. Before she could think of anything to say, Richard turned and started down the sidewalk. All Julie could do was watch him go. What Cad she said, oh, Cad, what you say, sis? It's not your story. You're just reading it. Oh, yeah. All right. All right. All right, sis. I kind of forgot that for a minute. Take it, take it, take it, take it. Oh my God, Angie. I am just reading it, my love. Oh boy. Look at that. Richard has kissed Julie. Oh. Mm. Did he just kiss her? Mike asked, his mouth hanging open. Earlier, he had been standing near the open bay of the garage when he had seen Richard walking up the street. He had watched Richard walk in alone. He had watched Julie and Richard walk out together. And Henry had walked up just as Richard was leaning in to kiss Julie. Ah, that's what it looked like. That's what it looks like to me, Henry answered. They don't even know each other. They do now. Thanks, Henry. You are making me feel a whole lot better. Do you want me to lie to you instead? Right now, I think I would, Mike mumbled. All right, Henry said, thinking about it. That fellow sure is ugly. At Henry's comment, Mike put his head in his hands. Once inside, Julie went back to her client. I thought you had forgotten about me, the woman complained as she lowered her magazine. Julie checked the color on the few strands of hair. Sorry about that, but I was watching the clock. It looks like you have still got a couple of minutes to go, unless you want it this dark. I think it should be lighter, don't you? I think so too. The woman went on about the exact color she desired. Though Julie knew she was speaking, she wasn't concentrating on what the woman was saying. Instead, she was thinking about Richard and what had just happened outside the door. He had kissed her. It wasn't a big deal, of course, not in the grand scheme of things. Yet, for some reason, she couldn't stop thinking about it. Nor did she know exactly how she felt. The way it happened had been so what? Forward? Surprising? Julie went to the sink in search of the right shampoo, still trying to figure it out. Then Mabel walked up. When Mabel walked up, did I just see what I thought I saw? She said. Did you just kiss him? Actually, he kissed me. You don't look too happy about it. I'm not sure whether I should be happy or if happy is the word to describe it. Why? I don't know, Julie said. It just seemed, She trailed off, still looking for the right word. Unexpected? Mabel offered. Julie thought about that. Though it was forward, it wasn't as if he had gone too far with it. And she did find him attractive. She did agree to go out with him. So she wasn't sure if surprise was the right word. At the same time, she also knew that if he had done it after their date next Saturday, she probably wouldn't have been questioning it at all. Next Saturday, she might have been insulted if he hadn't tried to kiss her. So why did it feel as if he had just crossed the barrier without asking her permission first? Julie shrugged. I guess that's it. Mabel studied her for a moment. Well, I'd say that means he had just as good of a time as you did, she said. Though I'm not really all that surprised. He's obviously giving you the full court press. Julie nodded slowly. I guess. You guess? He also left a card on my porch. I found it this morning. Mabel raised her eyebrows. You think it's too much? Julie asked. Considering I just met him? Not necessarily, but it might be. Oh, I don't know. He might be the kind of guy who knows what he wants, and when he finds it, he goes after it with gusto. I've met lots of men like that. They have their appeal, and you are quite the catch, you know, Julie. Julie smiled. Or then again, Mabel said with an elaborate shrug, He might be bonkers. Thanks a lot. No problem. But either way, all I can say is welcome back to the wonderful world of dating. Like I tell everybody, it's never boring, is it? It had been a long time since Richard laughed aloud, and in the confines of his car, the sound seemed louder than it was. He gets jealous, Juliet said about her dog, and if she honestly believed he was human, cute. Their evening together had been wonderful. He had enjoyed her company, of course, but what he had come to admire most was her resilience. Her life had been hard, and most people would have been marked by bitterness or anger. But he had seen no traces of that on her face during their date. She was also lovely. The way she had smiled at him with almost childlike excitement, and the look of struggle as she had debated whether to break her plans with her friends. He felt as if he could watch her for hours and hours and never grow tired of it. I had a good time on Saturday night, she had said. He was almost certain that she had, but he had had to see her today to make sure. The mind can do funny things on the day after a date, you know. The questions, the worries, the concerns. Should he have done this? Should he have said that? Yesterday he had recalled the date in detail, remembering Julie's expression and trying to discern any hidden subtext in her statements, suggesting that he had done something wrong. He had stayed awake, unable to sleep, until he had finally had to write a note and drop it off for her to find in the morning. But he need not have worried. They had both had a good time, not a great time. They had both had a good time. No, a great time. Ridiculous to have even considered that he might have been wrong about it. His cell phone rang and he checked the caller ID. Blankens from work. The foreman, no doubt offering more bad news about the schedule, about falling behind, about cost overruns, delays. Blankson always had bad news, the bearer of bad tidings. Depressing, that one. Said he cared about his men, but what he really meant was that he didn't want them to work hard. Instead of answering, he summoned Julie's image again. It had to have been fate, he thought, meeting her the way he had. There were 1,000 other places he could have been that morning. He wasn't due another haircut for a couple of weeks. But he had pushed through the door of the salon as if guided by an unknown force. Fate. Fate, he thought. The cell phone rang again. Yes, the date had gone well, but there was one thing. Today, towards the end, maybe he shouldn't have kissed her. It wasn't as if he had planned to kiss her, but he had been so elated when she broke her plans in order to see him again. It just happened. A surprise for both of them. But was it too much? Too soon? Yes, he decided it probably was, and he regretted it. There wasn't any rush here. It would be better to take it easy the next time he saw her. Give her a little bit of space. Let her come to her own conclusions about him without pressure, naturally. The cell phone rang a third time, but he continued to ignore it. In the back of his mind, he replayed the scene again and again. And to him, it was very cute. Lord of mercy, AG, what's up? AG, how you doing? You see, Julia get kissed, not just choked, but full-blown kiss from Richard. Can you imagine that? Hey, hey, hey. Now we are going to move on to chapter 5. I thought I was going to be reading. I said I wasn't going to be reading for more than an hour because I think an hour of reading a day is a good long enough time to read. I don't want to bore myself and I don't want to bore you all either. Yeah, I really don't want to. And I also got quite a bit of stuff. You all see how I waited this morning for the people to get back to me. And it's a good thing I decided to leave because I emailed just about every last one of them. And I decided that I wasn't going to wait for them to respond. I was just going to come home. And good thing I came home because when I woke up and checked my phone, I hadn't gotten an email back until like 3 o'clock. So it was a good thing that I left. They wouldn't answer the phone. Oh my God, those people. You're driving and listening. Okay. In that case, then I have to keep your company. But I also gotta get things all fixed up, if you all know what I mean. Yeah. Okay, gentle people, let us continue. Chapter 5. On Saturday night over dinner, Richard stared across the table at Julie, a faint smile playing over his lips. What are you smiling at? Julie asked. Richard seemed to come back to her, a sheepish look on his face. I'm sorry, I was just daydreaming there for a second. Am I that boring? No, not at all. I'm just glad you were able to come out with me tonight. Bringing up his napkin to dab at the corner of his mouth, he met her eyes. Have I told you how lovely you look this evening? About a dozen times. Do you want me to stop? No! Call me strange, but I sort of like life on the pedestal. Richard laughed. I'll do my best to keep you there. They were at Pagini's, a cozy restaurant in Moorhead City that smelt of fresh spice and drawn butter. The kind of place where the servers wore black and white and dinner was often cooked tableside. A bottle of Chardonnay sat in an ice bucket next to the table. The waiter had poured 2 glasses, and they glowed yellow in the soft light. She had shown up at the door dressed in a linen jacket, holding a bouquet of roses and smelling faintly of cologne. So tell me about your week, he said. What exciting things happened while I was gone? You mean at work? Work, life, whatever. I want to know it all. I should probably be asking you that question. Why? Because, she said, my life's not all that exciting. I work in a beauty salon in a small southern town, remember? She spoke with good, brisk humor as if to ward off sympathy. Besides, I just realized that I don't know much about you. Sure you do. Well, not really. You haven't told me much about yourself yet. I don't even know what you do exactly. I think I told you I'm a consultant, didn't I? Yeah, but you didn't go into a lot of details. That's because my job is boring. She pretended to look skeptical, and Richard thought for a moment. Okay, what I do? He paused. Well, just think of me as the guy who, working behind the scenes, makes sure the bridge doesn't collapse. That's not boring. That's just a fancy way of saying I work with numbers all day. When it gets right down to it, I'm what most people would consider a nerd. She ran her eyes over him, thinking, I doubt that. Is that what the meeting was about? What meeting? The one in Cleveland? Oh, no, he said, shaking his head. That's another project the company is getting ready to bid on in Florida. And there's a lot of research to do. Cost projection, traffic projections, expected loads, and things like that. They have their own people, of course, but they bring in consultants like me to make sure everything will go through the government bidding system without a hitch. You'd be amazed at the amount of work it takes before you can start a project. I'm single-handedly responsible for destroying vast tracts of timber just for the paperwork required by the government. And right now, I'm a little short-staffed. Julie observed him in the dim light of the restaurant. His angular face, at once rugged and boyish, reminded her of men who made their living posing in cigarette advertisements. She tried and failed to picture what he might have looked like as a child. What do you do in your spare time? Hobbies, I mean. Not too much, really. Between work and trying to stay in shape, I don't have much time for anything else. I used to do a little photography. I took a few courses in college, and for a short time there, I actually considered making it a career. Even bought some equipment. But it's a tough way to pay the bills, unless you want to open a studio. And I had no desire to spend my weekends photographing weddings and bar mitzvahs or kids whose parents dragged them in. So you became an engineer instead. He nodded. For a moment, the conversation hit a lull, and Julie reached for her wine glass. And you are originally from Cleveland? She asked. No, no, not at all. I haven't been in Cleveland all that long, just a year or so. Actually, I grew up in Denver and spent most of my life there. What did your parents do? Dad worked as a chemical at a chemical plant, and mom was just a mom. In the beginning, anyway. Stay home, cook supper, keep the house clean, leave it to beaver kind of stuff. But after my dad died, she had to take a job as a maid. It didn't pay much, but she was somehow able to keep us going. To be honest, I don't know how she did it. She sounds remarkable. Well, she is. He looked down, swirling the wine in his glass. She had a stroke a few years ago, and, well, it's not good. She's barely cognizant of what's going on around her, and she doesn't remember me at all. Doesn't remember much of anything. In fact, I had to send her to a place in Salt Lake City that specializes in her condition. Julie winced. Seeing her expression, Richard shook his head. It's okay. You didn't know, but to be honest, it's not something I usually talk about. Kind of brings conversations to an uncomfortable stop, especially when people hear that my father had died too. Makes them wonder what it must be like to be without family. But you don't need but you don't need me to explain that, I suppose. No, 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 she thought. I don't. I know that territory very well. So that's why you left Denver? Because of your mom? That was only part of it. He glanced at the table before looking up again. I guess now's the time to tell you that I was married once to a woman named Jessica. I left because of her, too. Though a little surprised he hadn't mentioned it before, Julie said nothing. She could feel him debating whether he should go on, but finally he did, his voice flat. I don't know what went wrong. I could spend all night talking about it and trying to make sense of it, but to be honest, I still haven't figured it out. In the end, it just didn't work out. How long were you married? 4 years. He met her eyes across the table. Do you really want to hear about this? Not if you don't want to tell me. Thank you, he said, exhaling with a laugh. You have no idea how glad I am that you said that. Andrea is in the house. Blessings, Andrea. How are you, my sister? She smiled. So, Cleveland, huh? Do you like it there? It's all right, but I'm not there at all much. Usually I'm on site like I am now. After this project finishes up, I have no idea where I'll go next. I'll bet that's hard sometimes. Yeah, sometimes it is, especially when I'm stuck in hotels. This project is nice because I'll be here for a while and I was able to find a place to rent. And, of course, I got the chance to meet you. As he was talking, Julie was struck by how much their lives seemed to have in common. From being only children raised by single mothers to their decisions to start over in somewhere new. And though their marriages had ended differently, something in his tone suggested he had been the one left behind, that he had struggled with real feelings of loss in the aftermath. In her time in Swansboro, Julie hadn't met anyone who could understand how lonely she sometimes felt, especially around the holidays when Mike and Henry would mention that they were going to visit their parents, or Mabel headed off to Charleston to spend time with her sister. But Richard knew what it was like, and she felt an emerging kinship between them. The kind visitors to a the kind visitors to a strange country might feel upon discovering that people at the next table came from a town in their home state. The evening wore on, and the sky deepened in color, unveiling the stars. Neither Julie nor Richard rushed through dinner. They ordered coffee at the end of the meal and split a piece of key lime pie, eating their way in from opposite. That sounds so romantic. Eating their way in from opposite sides until only a sliver was left that neither of them would claim. It was still warm when they finally left, expecting him to offer his hand or arm. She was surprised when he did neither. Part of her wondered whether he was holding back because he sensed that she had been caught off guard by his kiss earlier that week. Another part wondered if he had surprised himself with all he had told her about his past. There was, she thought, a lot to digest there. The little tidbit about being married in the past had come out of the blue, and she wondered why he hadn't mentioned it on the first date, when she had first told him about Jim. That was okay, though. She reminded herself that people were different when it came to talking about their past. And anyway, now that they were more comfortable with each other, she realized she was enjoying his date at least as much as the first one. It was nice. Not earth-shattering, but definitely nice. When they stopped at the crosswalk, Julie glanced at Richard. I like him, she thought. I'm not crazy about him yet. I'd be ready to say goodbye. I'd be ready to say goodbye later, but I like him. And that's enough for me right now. Do you like dancing? She asked. Why? Do you want me to go? If you are up for it. Oh, I don't know. I'm not all that good. Come on, she said. I know a great place. You sure you don't want to stay around here for a while? He could probably find a place to get drunk. Or just to get a drink. We have been sitting 4 hours. I think I'm ready for some fun. You don't think the night's been fun so far? He asked, pretending to be hurt. And here I was, having a great time. You know what I mean. But if it makes you feel any better, I'm not a very good dancer either. So I promise I won't say a thing if you step on my feet. I'll even try not to wince. Suffer and smile? It's the woman's plight, you know. Okay, he said, but I'll hold you to your promise. She laughed and nodded towards his car. Come on. Richard warmed to the sound of her laughter, the first time he had heard it this evening. She's a cautious one, he observed. Kissed her once, and she seemed to answer it all. But allow her to lead, and the caution seemed to fade. He knew he knew she was trying to figure him out, trying to match his story to the man she saw sitting across from her. But there was no mistaking the sympathy on her face the moment she realized how similar they were. Okay. Oh, Jappy, what's up? Blessings, family, blessings, blessings, blessings. How are you doing, my love? Good to see you. Thank you so much for stopping by. Guys, don't forget, when you need to check out sports and all the things that happening in Jamaica and Caribbean sports, you all got to check out my dear brother right there, Jappy's Sports Talk. Yes, Jappy has all things sporting going on over on his channel there. Let's see how long chapter 6 is. Oh my guys, chapter 6 kind of long. Hold on there now. Hold on there now. No sir. Chapter 6 is like 10 pages. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably end up being in the end. Yeah, chapter 6 is like 12 pages. And you don't want to read for too long. When you sit and read for too long, you get a little bit tired. And then when you get tired, you start fumbling over the words. And we don't like that. So we read for a reasonable amount of time. Chapter 6. The Sailing Clipper was a bar typical of small coastal towns, dimly lit and smelling of mildew, cigarettes, and stale booze. It was probably popular with blue-collar workers who crowded around the bar ordering Budweiser in volumes. Along the far wall, the stage overlooked a slightly warped dance floor that seldom emptied when bands were playing. A few dozen tables, carved with the initials of most everyone who had walked through the door, were arranged haphazardly on matching chairs circling them. The group on stage, Ocracoke Inlet, I first know about them. Ocracoke Inlet was something of a regular at the Clipper. The owner, a one-legged man people called Leaning Joe, liked the group because it played songs that put people in a good mood, which made them want to stay, which in turn was good for business, as they ordered booze in quantities. They played nothing original, nothing daring, nothing that couldn't be found in jukeboxes around the country, which was exactly the reason why Mike thought everyone liked them so much, really liked them. When they played, people came in droves, which wasn't the case with the bands he played with. Never once, however, had they asked Mike to fill in, even though he was on a first-name basis with most of the group. Second-rate band or not, the thought was depressing. But then, the whole evening had been depressing. Hell, the whole week had been depressing, for that matter. Ever since Monday, when Julie came by to pick up her keys and casually mentioned that she'd be going out with Richard on Saturday instead of spending tonight with them, Mike had been in a funk. He had been mumbling to himself about the unfairness of it all with such regularity that a couple of customers had even commented on it to Henry. Worst, Mike couldn't summon the courage to talk to Julie the rest of the week, knowing that if he did, she had pressed him on what seemed to be bothering him. He wasn't ready to tell her the truth, but seeing her walk by the shop every day reminded him that he had no idea what to do about the whole situation. Sure, Henry and Emma were great, and he liked spending time with them, but let's be honest here, on a night like this, Mike knew he was a third wheel in this little group. They had each other to go home to. Mike, on the other hand, had Zip, unless he counted the occasional mouse that scurried through his kitchen. They had each other to dance with. Mike had to sit at the table alone half the time, reading beer labels as he peeled them off the bottles. And when Emma did ask him to dance, which she had done regularly tonight, Mike would head to the floor, his head hung low, hoping to God that no one would see him dancing with his sister-in-law, that is, whatever, his sister. Technicalities weren't important at a time like this? When she asked, it still made him feel as if his mother had to offered to go with him to the prom because he couldn't get a date. This was not the way things were supposed to be tonight. Julie was supposed to be here. Julie was supposed to be the fourth wheel. Julie was supposed to be the one dancing with him, smiling over a drink, laughing and flirting. And she would have been if it wasn't for Richard. You made me to read it. I'm all right with Angie, man. Richard, he hated that guy. He didn't know him, didn't want to know him either. It didn't matter. Simply thinking the name caused him to scowl, and he's been scowling a lot all evening long. Oh my God. Watching his brother carefully, Henry finished the last of his course and set the bottle off to the side. I think maybe you ought to cut back on that cheap beer you are drinking, Henry commented. Looks like it's giving you gas. Mike looked up. Henry was smirking as he reached for Emma's bottle of beer. She had gone off to the bathroom. And considering the ever-present lines in a crowd this size, Henry knew she might be a while. He had already ordered another to replace it. I'm drinking the same stuff you are. True, Henry said, but you have to realize that some men can handle it better than others. Yeah, keep talking. My, aren't we in a mood this evening? Henry said. You have been riding me all night. Considering the way you have been acting lately, you deserve it. We had a great dinner. I've been engaging you with my sparkling wit all night long, and Emma's been making sure that you are not always sitting alone at the table like some loser whose date just stood him up. That's not even funny. It's not meant to be. I'm simply speaking the truth. Think of me as your very own burning bush. When in doubt, when you need answers, you come to me. For instance, you need to lighten up about this. You are letting it ruin your whole night. Look, I'm doing my best, okay? Oh, Henry said, cocking an eyebrow. I see. Sorry, I guess I'm just imagining all the deep sighs. Mike pulled the rest of the label off his bottle and crumpled it into a ball. Yeah. You are a funny guy, Henry. You should head to Vegas with your act. Believe me, I'd be the first to pack your bags. Henry leaned back in his seat. Oh, come on. I'm just having a little fun. Yeah, at my expense. Henry held up his hands, looking innocent. You are the only one here. Who else can I pick on? Mike glared at him before turning away. All right. I'm sorry already, Henry said. But listen, I'll say it again. Just because she's out with Richard doesn't mean that you have lost your chance forever. Instead of moping around, use it as a challenge. Maybe this should inspire you to ask her out. I was already planning on that, Mike. I was already planning on that. Henry, you were? Yeah. After we talked on Monday, I decided to do exactly what you said. Tonight was supposed to be the night. Henry studied him. Good, he finally said. I'm proud of you. Mike waited for more, but Henry stayed silent. What? No jokes this time? No reason to make jokes. Because you don't believe me? No, I believe you. I have to, I guess. Why? Because I'll get to see you do it. Huh? The gods are with you, little brother. What the hell are you talking about? Henry raised his chin, nodding in the direction of the door. Guess who just walked in? Welcome into the live, guys. Don't forget that y'all should hit the like button, please. Hit the like button. I'm like, honestly, Me like on been hitting the like button, but you need to invite other people to hit the like button. You all have been really taking me by. Not that I don't expect the best of y'all, because I come here and I present myself to y'all, and not that I'm not expecting it, but I am pleased. Let me just say that you all have been sharing. You all have been sharing my videos. You all have been hitting that like button, and also there have been a lot of newbies in the channel, and I sincerely appreciate that. Richard stood beside Julie just inside the door as she craned her neck looking for a place to sit. I didn't realize it would be so crowded, Richard shouted over the noise. Are you sure you want to stay? Come on, it'll be fun, you see. Though he flashed a quick Though he flashed a quick smile of agreement, Richard was doubtful. This place struck him as a refuge for those who drank to escape their problems, people who were desperate for the companionship of a stranger. It was, he thought, the kind of atmosphere that promoted the notion that everyone here, whether with someone or not, was up for grabs. Julie didn't belong in a place like this any more than he did. On stage, the band had started up again, and people were trading places on the floor, some heading in, others taking a break. He leaned in close to Julie's ear, and she could feel his breath against her. Let's get something to drink, he said, before we find a place to sit down. Julie nodded. Sure, you lead the way. The bar is straight ahead. As Richard began squeezing between people, He reached back, offering his hand to Julie. Without hesitation, she took it. When they reached the bar, he held onto it as he raised his other hand to get the bartender's attention. So that's him, huh? Emma said. Emma, 38, was a green-eyed blonde with a sunny disposition, which which more than offset the fact that she wasn't all that pretty in the classic sense. Short and round faced, she dieted constantly with no success, though neither Mike nor Henry knew why she bothered. People responded to Emma not for superficial reasons, but who she was and the things she did. She volunteered regularly at her children's school, and at 3 o'clock every afternoon, she propped open the front door with a brick so that kids in the neighborhood could have a place to congregate. And they did. Her house was a beehive of activity for hours as children trampled in and out, down by the homemade pizzas, drawn by the homemade pizzas she cooked almost daily. But if the children loved her, Henry adored her and considered himself fortunate to have her by his side. Emma was good for Henry and vice versa, as they often told each other and told others who would listen. They were too busy laughing together to have any time to argue. Don't y'all want one of those relationships? Those relationships just sound so pure. Like Henry, Emma loved to tease, and when they got going, they seemed to feed off each other. And after a couple of drinks, watch out, Mike thought, they were deadly, like sharks who fed on their young. Unfortunately for Mike, he knew that right now he was nothing but a baby shark swimming ahead of Mommy's open jaws. One look at the hungry gleam in their eyes made him want to dive for cover. Henry nodded. That's him. Emma continued to stare. He's really something, isn't he? I think Mabel used the word sexy, Henry offered. Emma raised a finger as if Henry were an attorney who had made a valid point in court. Yes, sexy, very sexy, in a handsome stranger kind of way. I mean, Mike crossed his arms and sank lower in his seat, wondering if the evening could get any worse. My sentiments exactly, Henry said, still waiting for drinks. Hold on there, guys. Come on, thing. Still waiting for drinks. Richard and Julie were standing at the bar, their faces in profile. They do make a lovely couple, he added. They certainly stand out in a crowd, Emma agreed. It's like one of those People magazine articles about the world's most glamorous couples. Like they should be staring in a movie together. They should be starring in a movie together. Knock it off, you guys. Mike finally cut in. I get it. He's perfect. He's wonderful. He's Mr. Everything. Emma and Henry faced Mike, their eyes bright with amusement. We are not saying that, Mike, Henry offered. We are just saying he looks like he is. Emma reached across the table and patted Mike on the shoulder. Besides, she said, there's no reason to lose hope. Looks aren't the only thing that matter. Mike glared at them. Henry leaned towards Emma. I guess you should know my little brother's been having a hard time with all of this. And from his expression, I don't think we are helping. Oh, really? Emma asked innocently. I'd be fine if you two would quit picking on me. You have been at it all night. But you are such an easy target when you are this way. Emma giggled. Pouting does that, you know. Henry and I haven't Henry and I have already been through this, and it's not attractive at all, Emma said, ignoring his comments. Take it from a woman who knows. Unless you want to lose out to a guy like that, you'd better change your tune before it's too late. If you keep acting the way you have been acting all night, you might as well say goodbye right now. Mike blinked at the honesty. So I should act like I don't care? No, Mike. Act like you do care. Like you want what's best for her. How do I do that? Be her friend? I am her friend. Not right now, you're not. If you were her friend, you'd be happy for her. Why should I be happy she's with him? Because, Emma said as if the answer were obvious. It means she is ready to start looking for the guy who's right for her, and everyone knows who that is. In the end, I honestly doubt if it'll be the guy over there. She smiled and touched his shoulder again. Do you really think we'd be giving you such a hard time if we didn't believe that was all going to work out for you two in the end? As much as she teased him, Mike knew at that moment why Henry loved her so much and why he loved her too, in a sisterly kind of way, of course. Our discard say, baby shark, baby shark to God, that's easy. Baby shark to do. Oh my God, this book is so wholesome and nice. Thank you, Nicholas, for this book. It is so wholesome compared to the other one we started last week. This book is so wholesome. Julie and Richard's drinks finally arrived. Bourbon for him, a Diet Coke for her. And after paying, Richard put his wallet away, then glanced off to the side, towards the man sitting at the end of the bar. The man was stirring his drink, seemingly minding his own business. But Richard waited, and sure enough, a moment later, the man's eyes drifted over to Julie. The whole time he and Julie waited for their drinks, the man had been doing just that, though he had tried not to be obvious. This time, however, Richard caught his gaze and watched him with unblinking eyes until the man finally turned away. Who are you looking at? Julie asked. Richard shook his head. No one, he said, just thinking about something else for a second there. He smiled. You up for hitting the dance floor yet? She asked. Not quite yet. I think I need to finish my drink first. Andrea, dressed in a tight black miniskirt, stiletto heels, and a halter top, had stretched the chewing gum from her mouth to her finger and was twirling it around in boredom as Cobra drowned his sixth shot of tequila and chased it with a squeeze of lime. Wiping the pulp from his mouth with the back of his hand, he grinned at Andrea, his cold incisor catching the light of the neon sign behind him. Cobra had rolled up in the front of the salon on his Harley on Thursday morning, though Andrea didn't know it. Her name was frequently mentioned at bikers' bars as far away as Louisiana. And by the time he had left, Andrea had given him her cell phone number and spent the rest of the day strutting around the shop, feeling downright pleased with herself. In her rapture, she hadn't noticed the pitying glances Mabel had cast her way, nor had she realized that Cobra was, like all the men she dated, basically a loser. He had called her earlier that evening after a couple of beers and suggested that she meet him and his friends at the Clipper. Though not technically a date, he hadn't offered to pick her up, nor had it occurred to either of them that he might suggest getting something to eat first. Andrea had been thrilled by the time she hung up the telephone, thinking it was close enough to at least feel like a date. She had spent an hour figuring out what she wanted to wear. First impressions were important. Before she had left to find Cobra at the Clipper, the first thing he had done was put his arms around her, resting both hands on her top, resting both hands on her bottom while kissing her on the neck. There are different classes of men, There are men and then there are men. Yeah. It hadn't bothered her. After all, Cobra wasn't bad looking, especially when compared to some of the other guys she had gone out with. Though he wore a black t-shirt with the picture of a bloody skull emblazoned on the front and leather straps over a crusty pair of jeans, he wasn't fat or hairy, and the tattoo of the mermaid on his arm, she had to admire it. Oh my God. And she had to admit was relatively tasteful when compared to others she had seen. She wasn't too keen on the gold tooth thing, but he looked and smelled clean enough, which you couldn't always bargain on. Nonetheless, she had finally come to the realization that the evening had been a complete waste, and that she had made a mistake by giving him her phone number. For one thing, after the first couple of shots, when things were just beginning to get interesting, a few of his friends had shown up, and one of them had informed her that Cobra wasn't the guy's real name, just the one he used with friends. His real name was Ed DeBona. That's an interesting name. Ed DeBona. That was when the interest began to fade. For the life of her, she couldn't imagine having to admit that to anyone. Unlike Cobra or Snake or Rat or even Dean, Ed wasn't the name of someone who drove a Harley. Someone one step ahead of the law and living the free life. Ed wasn't even the name of a real man. Ed was the name of a talking horse, for God's sake. And let's not even mention the last name, DeBona. When he had said it, she had nearly spat her drink out. Oh my gosh. Let us continue, guys. I can't hardly even spin the page. I'm so excited. This book is funny. You want to go back to your place, baby? Cobra asked, slurring his words. Andrea slid the gum back into her mouth. No! Then let's get another drink. You don't have any money. So buy me a drink, and I'll make it up to you later, baby. Though she had liked being called baby earlier in the morning, thinking it made her seem sultry, that was when Cobra was doing it. Not some guy named Ed DeMona. Andrea snapped her gum. Cobra seemed oblivious to her scorn. He reached under the table and ran his hand over her thigh. Well, you get what you asked for, Andrea. You with these kind of low life guys. Of course, that's what they're going to do. That's what they're going to do. The first time you meet them, they're sticking their hand up your skirt. They are classless. You know what I mean, right? He reached under the table and ran his hand over her thigh, and she stood up, pushing away from the table, needing another drink. It was when she neared the bar that she recognized Richard. Julie's face lit up as soon as she saw Mike, Henry, and Emma at the table near the dance floor. She reached for Richard's hand. Come on, she said. I think I see someplace we can sit. They pushed their way through the crowd, crossed the edge of the dance floor, and reached the table. Hey guys, I didn't expect to see you here, Julie said. How are you on the way? We are doing well, Henry said. We just thought we'd come by after dinner to see what was going on. Richard was standing behind her, and Julie tugged on his hand. I want you to meet someone, Richard. This is Henry and Emma, and this is my best friend Mike. Henry held out his hand. Hey there, he said. Richard hesitated before grasping it. Hello, he said simply. Mike and Emma came next. When Julie glanced at Mike, he smiled pleasantly, though doing so practically killed him. In the warm air of the bar, her face was slightly flushed. She was, he thought, particularly beautiful tonight. Do you want to sit down? Henry offered. We have got a couple of extra chairs. No, we don't want to bother you, Richard said. It's no bother. Come on, join us, Emma chimed in. You sure you don't mind? Julie asked. Don't be silly, Emma. We're all friends here. We're all friends here. Julie smiled and moved around the table to take her seat. Richard followed and did the same. Once they were comfortable, Emma leaned across the table. So, Richard, she said, tell us about yourself. Me can't bother with AG, you know. AG! AG says his new name is AG the Boner. I don't know who you are going, you know. You are bad. Oh my God. Let us continue. Let me get to undo this page before I start reading. Okay. Oh God, me tear up the book. The conversation was stilted, almost uncomfortable at first, because Richard didn't volunteer much more than was asked directly. Occasionally, Julie supplied additional information for him. Other times, she elbowed him playfully, as if chiding him, until he went on. I wonder if Richard is a drug dealer. We're going to continue. As he spoke, Mike did his best to appear interested, and he was, at least in a self-interested way, if only to see what he was up against. But as the minutes rolled on, he began to feel as if his future were that of a salmon swimming upstream. Even he could see why Julie was interested in Richard. He was intelligent and, yes, good-looking, he conceded, but only if one liked rugged, athletic types. And unlike Mike, he was both college-educated and well-traveled. Though he didn't laugh or joke much or appreciate Emma or Henry when they did, it seemed that his discomfort stemmed more from shyness than arrogance. And the way he felt about Julie was obvious. Whenever she spoke, Richard's eyes never leaves her face. He acted like a husband waking up in the first morning of their honeymoon. Through it all, Mike kept smiling and nodding, hating Richard's guts. A little later on, as Emma and Julie caught up on some of the latest news around town, Richard finished his drink. After asking if Julie wanted anything else, he excused himself to head back to the bar. When Henry asked him if he wouldn't mind grabbing another couple of beers, Mike stood as well, volunteering to go with Richard. I'll help you carry them back. They reached the bar, and the bartender signaled that he'd get there as soon as he could. Richard reached for his wallet, and though Mike was right beside him, he stayed silent. She's a great lady, Mike finally offered. Richard turned and seemed to study him before turning away again. Yes, she is, he simply said. Neither of them said another word to each other. Once they were back at the table, Richard asked Julie if she'd like to dance, and after saying goodbye, they were gone. Now that wasn't so hard, was it? Emma asked. Mike shrugged, not wanting to answer the question. And he seemed nice enough. Henry added, kind of quiet, but polite. Mike reached for his beer. I didn't like him, he said. Oh, now there's a surprise, Henry said, laughing. I'm not sure I trust him. Henry kept smirking. Well, since you promised, since you missed your opportunity, I guess we'll have to hang around for a while. What opportunity? You said tonight was the night you were going to ask her out. Shut up, Henry. Just shut the hell up. Oh my God. Well said. Okay, Henry, just don't try to hold the audience. Oh my gosh, Tisha, what's up? What are you doing? Happy Monday night to you, my love. Oh my gosh. Here I am. I'm reading from this lovely book called The Guardian by Nicholas Sparks. Lovely book. A little while later, Mike sat drumming his fingers on the table. Henry and Emma had gone to say hello to another couple they knew, and now that he was alone, Mike tried to figure out what it was exactly that he didn't like about Richard Franklin. Franklin. Besides the obvious, no, there was more to it than just that. No matter what Henry had said or what Julie seemed to think, Richard didn't strike Mike as a particularly nice guy. What happened at the bar made that plain. Once he had said what he had about Julie, Richard had looked at him as if already recognizing Mike's feelings for her, and his face clearly expressed what he thought about that. You lose, so stay away. Not exactly the hallmark of a nice guy. So why didn't Julie seem to see the side of Richard that he did? And why didn't Emma or Henry? Or was the whole thing just a figment of his imagination? Mike ran through the scenario again. No, he finally decided. I didn't imagine it. I know what I saw, and I didn't like it. And I don't like him. He leaned back in his chair, taking a deep breath as he scanned the room. His eyes, his eyes found Richard and Julie, and he watched them for a moment before he forced himself to turn away. During the band's break, Julie and Richard had left the dance floor and found a smaller table on the far side of the bar, and Mike had been glancing their way as he sat down. He looked at Julie and Richard and smiled. All right. Me gone back on studio. Me back on again, sis.
Alright.
Eh. All right, gentle people, we are back at it again. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry for that break right there. In the internet wasn't my fault. I'm sorry. Our AG matter about so me fall asleep. No, so me not fall asleep. There's something just say this site can no longer be reached. So I guess StreamYard just went kaput on me. Okay, but now it's back up, so we are back at it again. Let us continue reading. That's how it seemed anyway, as the night wore on. He couldn't escape the conclusion that his chance with Julie was suddenly going the way of Atlantis. While Mike was sitting by himself, Julie and Richard were staring into each other's eyes with goofy grins on their faces. They were leaning in to whisper and laugh, obviously enjoying each other's company. Disgusting! At least the last time he had looked just a few seconds ago. But what he wondered was what were they doing now? Slowly, oh, ever so slowly and subtly, Mike's eyes began to travel their way again. Julie was facing the other direction, so thankfully she wouldn't see him watching her. If she catch him, if she caught him staring, she might wave at him, or nod and smile, or worse, ignore him. The first, the first two would make him feel like an idiot. The last one would break his heart. As he turned, he saw Julie rummaging through her purse for something, her eyes focused in her lap. Richard's eyes, though, looked Richard's eyes, though, locked on his in a cool, almost confident appraisal. Yes, Mike, I know you're staring. Mike froze. A kid caught pulling a 20 from his mother's wallet. He wanted to turn away, but couldn't seem to summon the energy to move until he heard a voice behind him. He glanced over his shoulder and saw Drew, the lead singer from the band, standing near the table. Hey, Mike, Drew said. Got a minute? I wanted to talk to you about something. An hour later, wait, is that the right page? An hour later, with Cobra completely inebriated, Andrea headed to the bathroom. As she had done, as she had done since she had first spotted Richard earlier, she scanned the room looking for him as she stood in line. He and Julie were walking off the dance floor. Richard leaned over to whisper something in her ear, then headed towards the men's room. Knowing he had passed right by her, Andrea quickly ran her hand through her hair and adjusted her skirt and halter. She stepped out of the line, heading him off. Hey, Richard, she said brightly. How are ya? Fine, thanks, he said, though it took a minute. She saw the recognition in his face. Andrea, right? She smiled, thinking, I knew he'd remember. I haven't seen you here before, she said. It's my first time here. Don't you think it's great? Not really. Oh, well, neither do I. But there's not that many other places to go around here. Small town life, you know what I mean. I'm learning, he said. Friday nights are usually better, though. Huh? Yeah, that's when I usually come. In fact, I'm almost always here then. He paused, looking directly at her and holding her gaze, before finally nodding in Julie's direction. Listen, I'd love to stay and talk, but I really can't. Because you're with Julie? He shrugged. She's my date. Yeah, I know, Andrea said. Well, listen, it was nice seeing you again, he said. Thanks, you too. A moment later, he rushed on the door. He pushed on the door, letting it close behind him. While Andrea was staring at the door, Cobra staggered up behind her, mumbling something crude about bodily functions. As soon as he followed Richard through the door, she decided it was time to leave. Seeing Cobra one more time, she thought, would ruin the feeling she had had when her eyes met Richard's. Watch your so. It look like Andrea want to take Julie man. And what they going for? My God! Help my soul. You know, sound like that what happen, people. Mm. Oh, you're a little bit under the weather, Liz. Okay, I hope you feel better. You know, it's starting to get cold, right? Yeah, it's starting to get cold here. Cold here. Yes, coldness is coming in. I keep my windows, open, and boy, the cold breeze is coming in. But anywho, we are going to continue. We are going to continue reading. Andrea is jealous. Let us continue. Just past midnight, with the world glowing silver, Julie stood with Richard on the porch. Frogs and crickets were singing, a light breeze was moving the leaves, and even Singer seemed to be more accepting of Richard, though his face was poking through the curtains and he was eyeing them carefully. He hadn't made a sound. Thanks for tonight, she said. You are welcome. I had a wonderful time. Even at the Clipper? As long as you had fun, then I'm glad we went. Not your kind of place, huh? He shrugged. To be honest, I probably would have preferred something a bit more private, so you and I could be alone. We were alone, not the whole time. She looked at him, a quizzical expression on her face. Are you talking about when we sat with my friends for a while? She asked. Did you think I did that because I wasn't having fun? I wasn't sure what to think. Sometimes women use that as a kind of escape when the date isn't going well, as in, help, I need rescuing. She smiled. Oh, that wasn't it at all. They were the ones I was supposed to go to dinner with tonight, and when I saw them, I wanted to say hello. Richard's eyes drifted to the porch light, then back to Julie. Hey, listen. I know I was kind of quiet with your friends. I'm sorry about that. I never seem to know why I do that, and I never seem to know what to say to strangers. You were fine. I'm sure they liked you. I'm not too sure that Mike did. Mike? He was watching us. Though she hadn't noticed, she realized she could have. Oops. She realized she should have expected something like that. Mike and I have known each other for years, she said. He watches out for me. That's all. Richard seemed to evaluate that. Finally, a small smile flickered across his face. Okay, he said. For a long moment, neither of them said anything else. Then Richard moved towards her. This time, though she expected the kiss, and though she wanted him to do it, or at least thought she wanted him to do it, she couldn't deny the slight feeling of relief when he turned to leave a minute later. No need to rush into anything, she thought. If it's right, I'll know. Ah, all right, all right, guys. All right. I think that is enough reading for tonight. Yeah, I think that is enough reading for tonight. Yes, the amazing M&G roll up in the place. Mr. M&G, I laugh today. I laugh today. You put me to sleep. Mr. Easy, You're there about you're there on the beach at Manchineal. Mr. I watch that video there about 6 times. You're there on the beach at Manchineal. Fish, fish. You are so funny. And that man who was thinking him need a record label to sign him. You always I will always find these people at Portland to sing for you and promote your channel. It's always so refreshing to watch. You are simply the best, my love. I love you. I was cracking up. And the beaches, I like how the beaches stay so nice and clean. I love it. Yes, guys. So that's where we're going to end the reading for tonight. That was a whole 2 hours of reading. Tomorrow we will try to read for another 2 hours. Maybe not if I have 2 hours worth of time tomorrow, but we are going to try. I don't know if you don't want me to read some more. You don't want more? Let me see how long chapter 7 is. I said I wasn't going to read off all of chapter 6, because chapter 6 was like 12 pages. I see. Me don't read it. And chapter 7 is only 3 pages. What y'all think? Talk to me, gentle people. You don't want me to read chapter 7? It's only 3 pages. And then, right, I need to prepare you all for the end, for where the story is going to end tonight. So I'm going to read chapter 7. Chapter 7 is only 3 pages. And then after that, we're going to end. Does that sound reasonable, gentle people? I hope it does to all my travelers and friends. Yeah, I hope it does. All right, so we are going to be reading. We are going to be reading chapter 7. All right, chapter 7. Watch me on this book. Because me so curl up in the couch because me say it cold. Me have the big blanket throw over me. And me say it's kind of chilly. There he goes, Henry says, right on time. It was Tuesday morning, a few days after their evening at the Clippers. Henry was drinking Dr. Pepper and watching Richard as he made his way down the street towards the salon. Richard was carrying a gift, a small box, but that wasn't the reason Henry was curious. Because he had told Richard where he worked when they met on Saturday, he expected Richard to at least glance towards the garage. The day before, Henry had even waved, but Richard either didn't see him or pretended not to. Instead, he had kept his eyes forward and walked right on past, just like today. Hearing his brother, Mike emerged from beneath the hood of the car. After removing a rag tucked into his belt, he started wiping his hands. Must be nice being a consultant, Mike said. Doesn't that guy ever have to work? Don't get upset now. You used up your yearly quota of pouting last week. Besides, you'd rather have him go see her when she's working than when she's at home, right? One look, one look told Henry that Mike hadn't thought of that. Then, almost immediately, Mike's face took on a startled expression. Is he bringing her a gift? He asked. Yup, that's the special occasion. Maybe he wants to impress her. Mike wiped his hands again. Well, if that's the case, maybe I'll just swing by there a little later with a gift of my own. Now you're talking, Henry said, slapping his brother on the back. That's exactly what I wanted to hear you say. A little less whining and a little more action. We Harrises have always been men who rise to the occasion. Thanks, Henry, but before you head off with guns blazing, let me give you some advice. Sure, scrap the gift. But I thought you just said, that's his thing. It won't work for you. But trust me on this. I'll make you look desperate. It will make you look desperate. I am desperate. You may be, Henry agreed, but you can't let her know that. She'll think you are pathetic. Richard, Julie said, staring down at the open jewelry case in her hand. Inside was an ornate heart-shaped locket supported by a gold chain. It's beautiful. They were standing outside the door, unaware that Mike and Henry were watching from across the street and Mabel and Singer were peeking through the window behind them. But why? I mean, what's the occasion? No occasion. I just saw it and, well, I liked it. Or rather, I thought of you and knew that you should have it. Julie's eyes flashed to the locket. It was obviously expensive and, and consequently carried added expectations. As if reading her mind, Richard held her hands. Please, I want you to have it. If you have to, think of it as a birthday gift. My birthday is not till August, so I'm a little early, he paused. Please, still? Richard, it's sweet, but I really shouldn't. It's just a locket, not an engagement ring. Still a bit unsure, she finally gave in and kissed him. Thank you, she murmured. Richard motioned towards the locket. Try it on. Julie unhooked the clasp and slipped it around her neck. How does it look? She stared at the locket, an odd smile on her face, as if he were thinking of something else. He kept his eyes on it as he answered, It's perfect. It's exactly the way I remembered it. Remember? From the jewelry store, he said, but it looks better on you. Oh, well, you shouldn't have. You are wrong there. It was exactly what I should have done. Julie put one hand on her lip. You are spoiling me, you know. People don't usually go around buying me gifts for no reason at all. Then it's a good thing that I do. And you do really believe there always has to be a reason? Haven't you ever seen something that you thought was perfect for someone else and bought it? Of course, but not like this. And I don't want you to feel like I expect you to do these things because I don't. I know you don't, but that's part of the reason why I like to do it. Everyone needs a surprise now and then. He paused. So, are you up for doing something this Friday night? I thought you were leaving town for a meeting. I was, but it turns out the meeting got cancelled. Or rather, my part of it got cancelled. I'm free all weekend. What did you have in mind? She asked. Something very special. I'd like to keep it a surprise, though. Julie didn't answer right away, and as if sensing her uncertainty, Richard reached for her hand. You love it, Julie. Trust me on this. But you'll have to get off a little early. I'll have to pick you up at your place around 4 o'clock. Why so early? It takes a while to get where we are going. Do you think you can make it? She smiled. I'll have to shuffle my schedule a bit, but I think I can make it. Should I wear something dressy or casual? It was a polite way of asking if she should pack a bag. If he said both, it meant a weekend away, and she couldn't see them doing that just yet. I'll be wearing a jacket and tie if that helps. It certainly sounded like a legitimate date. I guess I'll have to do some shopping, she finally said. I'm sure you'll be beautiful no matter what you wear. With that, he kissed her again, and when he finally left, Julie's fingers traveled to the locket. It opened with a click, and she saw she was right in assuming small photos could be placed inside. She was surprised to see that he had already had it engraved with her initials on one side. This is not looking good, little brother, Henry admitted. I don't care that Emma said what Emma said the other night. This is not looking good. Thanks for the update, Einstein, Mike grumbled. Let me give you some advice. More advice? Henry nodded, as if telling Mike there was no reason to thank him. Before you do anything, you are going to have to come up with some sort of a plan. What kind of a plan? I don't know, but if I were you, I'd make it a good one. It's lovely, Mabel said, eyeing the locket. I guess he's really taken with you, huh? It looks like it cost a small fortune. She motioned towards the locket. Do you mind? No, go ahead, Julie said, leaning forward. Mabel looked it over, and it's definitely not from one of the jewelers in town. This looks handmade. Do you think so? I'm sure of it. Not only that, you have learned something important about Richard Franklin. What's that? He's got good taste. I mean, great taste. Mabel let go of the locket, and Julie felt it tap gently against her chest. She looked at it again. Now I just have to find a couple of pictures to go inside. Mabel's eyes twinkled. Oh, honey, if you are beating around the bush, don't worry about it. I'd be more than happy to give you a picture of me to carry around with you. I'd be honored, in fact. Julie laughed. Thanks. You were the first one I thought of, you know. I'm sure. So you got so you gotta put a picture of Singer in there. At the moment of his name, Singer looked up. He had been standing beside Julie since he had come back into the salon, and Julie ran her hand along his back. With this bozo, I'd probably have to stand 100 yards away to get one of him with that would fit. True, Mabel said. What's going on with him anyway? He's been so clingy lately. I have no idea, but you are right. He's been driving me crazy. I keep stumbling over him every time I turn around. How is he with Richard? At home, I mean. Like he is here, he said. He stares, but at least he doesn't growl like he did the first time. Singer whined. A low squeak emerged from his throat, sounding almost too small to be coming from him. Quit complaining. It seems to me, quit complaining. It seems to mean we both know you love me no matter how I act. OMG, is that Mike in the place? Mike, bless up your nice clean self. You cook the cow food without me. But it's all right. It's all right, Mike. So I just love listening to. Oh, oh, thank you, Mike. Thank you, darling. Thank you so much. You can fall asleep while listening to me. Oh, that's so sweet. Mwah. Oh boy. Yeah, eat some leftover from yesterday. Oh boy. The cow foot dinner. Look at that, eh? Look at that. Oh boy, I tell you. We are going to continue. Me don't know when you say me I gotta do the cow foot cook off in a mic. I don't know when. But set the date. It done, you know. Set the date, can I have some cow foot in the fridge. Me think tomorrow me I go stop at the Caribbean store and get some more before the Thanksgiving rushes on and people start buying out everything. Me beg my friend if get me some goat. Him not know yet. Him I go check it out. I don't want him to check it out and come up with the goat late, you know. So me might have to go to the Caribbean store, go buy some parcels and buy maybe about 4 or 5 parcels of goat and come home and wash them and season them and put them in the fridge. Yeah, who knows? But anywho, we are going to continue. We are going to continue. A plan, Mike thought. I need a plan. Mike rubbed his chin, unaware that he was leaving grease along his jaw. Henry was right, he thought. For once, the guy had actually said something important, something that made sense. A plan was definitely what he needed. But the problem, Mike seemed to realize, was that it was a lot easier to say that he needed a plan than to actually come up with one. Mike wasn't much of a planner and never had been. Things just sort of happened and he went along with the flow, like a cork bobbing atop the waves. Usually, that wasn't such a bad thing. For the most part, he was happy. For the most part, he felt pretty good about himself, even if the whole artist and musician thing hadn't worked out so far. But now the stakes were a little higher, the chips were down, and it was time to lay the cards on the table. Put up or shut up. The going was rough. and it was time to get going. There was no time like the present because the early bird catches the worm. It was time to just do it. But even though all the cliches seemed appropriate, he still wasn't sure what to do. A plan. The whole problem was that he didn't know where he should start. In the past, he had been the good guy, the friend, the one she could always count on, the one who fixed their car and played frisbee with Singer, the one who spent the first 2 years after Jim's death holding her as she cried. None of those things had seemed to matter. All they had done was lead to the first 2 dates with Richard. Then, changing everything last week, he had avoided her. He hadn't talked to her, hadn't called her at home, hadn't stopped by to just by hadn't stopped by just to say hi. And the net result? She hadn't called either. She hadn't stopped by. And in the end, based on what he had seen on the street, all that had done was lead to a third date with Richard. So what was he supposed to do? He couldn't just stroll over there and ask her out. Odds were she was going out with Richard. And what was he supposed to say to that? Oh, you're too busy on Saturday? How about Friday? Or next week, maybe? How about breakfast then? That, he thought, would make him look desperate, which, according to Henry, was something he had to avoid at all costs. A plan. Mike shook his head. The worst part about his whole thing was plan or no plan. He was lonely. Yeah, very lonely. Yeah, the whole situation with Richard was a royal bummer of the worst kind. But over the last couple of years, he had grown used to talking to Julie at least once a day, sometimes more than that. He had been heartbroken if Julie and Richard ended up together. But if that happened, it happened. In time, he might be able to accept something like that. But what he couldn't bear to face was the possibility of feeling the way he had been feeling this last week or so. It wasn't simply frustration or fear or even jealousy. It wasn't depression either. More than anything, he missed Julie. He missed talking to her, seeing her smile, hearing the sound of her laughter, watching the way her eyes in the late afternoon when the sun was just right seemed to change from green to turquoise, listening listening to the quick intakes of breath whenever she was getting close to the end of the funny story, even the way she punched him in the arm sometimes. Maybe he should have Ed, maybe he should have just head over there and talked to her the same way he always had, as though nothing had changed between them. Maybe he had even tell her that he was glad she had had a good time the other night, the way Mabel or Henry or Emma would. No, 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 he thought, suddenly changing his mind. I won't go that far. No reason to get carried away. Take it one step at a time. By the time Mike taking it one step at a time, Richard gone with Julie. But I will talk to her. He knew it wasn't much of a plan, but it was all he could come up with at this time. Poor Mike. OMG. Poor Mike. I mean, if you wait too long, somebody else I go eat your food. Teresa is in the house. Welcome into the house, Teresa. How are you doing, my love? Hold on, this somebody send me one message here, so it might be an important message. Let me see. What is? What is? One of them people here. No, ma'am. No, thank you, ma'am. No, thank you, ma'am. What kind of money this? You can't pay me them kind of money. If you do no pharma nursing, you crazy. Y'all are crazy. Nope, nope, nope. All right, we are gonna go on to chapter 8. I don't know what is going on. I don't know all of the people because we don't have the light on. I use the light of one of my phones, and I think I need to turn the light on. Turn on the light. Oh, turn off the light. And light a candle. All right, there we go. That's the breeze are coming from out the door. Cool is the people. We can't believe. So the breeze so cool. Already October, actually, a time for the cold season begin. So I know so I have to go root up my potato, slip them. I have to go root up my potato, slip them and cook them. Because the slip them are going to dry up and there isn't going to be enough. Them not going to be able to make the potatoes. The potato slip them just come up kind of late. But anyway, LG, me need some purple potato. I've been searching everywhere to find the potato of the purple meat. The potato there. I've been searching for. Yeah, take it one step at a time, Mike. Mike say, if I follow namesake here, so I'm taking it one step at a time. All right, that's not bad. That's a good thing. That is a good thing. Let me see this. Okay. All right. Let's put this right there. I have a couple of things to do. Once I get off this live tonight, I have some things that I must get done. But since another day here, I want to enjoy the reading. What you're trying to cut back on your electricity. No, sir. I'm not trying to cut back on my electricity. My sleep. Well, cutting back is good. Cutting back is good. You know, say I just me not have no me not yeah, I'm in one room. That's where there is a light. Me not like turn on the lights in the whole house while I'm in one spot. Oftentimes me use the light off of my tripod. Yeah. Enough time me either use the light off of my tripod or the light off of my phone. Yeah, Cause me not sleeping in the dark, but me have like the little light them where you put in the little light them where you can just plug in the computer. So me like just plug them in the socket and them give me enough light. Cause me not like sleeping in the dark. Alright, let us continue. Since you not enjoy this, let me just give to you. Let me just give to you. And me love seeing you in the chat, me love seeing you, me love no company. So I when me say me going, honestly say me still not leave yet. Oh my gosh. I think I'm gonna leave maybe about 9:30 so. Yeah, come I have some things to finish before tomorrow. Yeah. Hey Julie, Mike called. Wait up. Julie turned to see Mike jogging towards her as she was heading to her car. Singer lopped over in his direction, reaching him first, lifting first one paw and then the other. He looked as if he were trying to grab Mike in preparation for a series of sloppy, friendly licks. Mike avoided that. As much as he liked Singer, he was a little disgusting to be drenched with dog saliva. Of course it's disgusting. But he did pet him. Like Julie, he also talked to Singer as if he were a person. Did you miss me, big guy? Yeah, I miss you too. We should do something together. Singer's ears went up, looking interested, and Mike shook his head. No frisbee today, buddy. No frisbee today. I'm sorry. I mean, I meant later. It didn't seem to matter to Singer. As Mike started towards Julie again, Singer spun and walked beside him, nudging him playfully. Of course, playful was a relative term. The dog nearly sent Mike careening into the mailbox before he caught his balance. I think you need to take your dog for a few more walks, he said. He is all wound up. You remember, oh, he saw the dog big. The dog so big. He's just excited to see you. How are you? I haven't seen much of you lately. I'm good. I'm just busy, that's all. As he answered, he couldn't help but notice that her eyes were very green today, like jade. Me too, she said. How was it with Henry and Emma the other night? It was fun, so much fun. Wish you could have made it. But he shrugged as if it didn't matter, though Julie knew from what Richard had told her that it probably did. He surprised her, however, by immediately changing the subject. I did get some good news, though, he said. The band that was playing Ocracoke Inlet, Ocracoke, I said name, Ocracoke Inlet. On my way out the other night, Drew asked me if I'd fill in for their guitarist. Their regular guys got to go to a wedding in Chicago the next time they're supposed to be at the Clipper. Wow, that's great. When is that? In a couple of weeks. I know it's just a one-time thing, but it should be fun. Playing for a full house, you mean? Sure, he said. I mean, why not? I know most of the songs, and the band's not all that bad. That's not what you told me before. They never asked me to play before. Oh, jealous, were you? As soon as she said the word, she regretted it, but Mike didn't seem to notice. No, not jealous. Miffed, yes, but jealous, no. And who knows where it might lead? Could end up being exactly what I need to get something more regular. Well, Julie said, not wanting to dim his enthusiasm, I'm glad it worked out. For a moment, neither of them said anything, and Mike shuffled his feet. So, what have you been up to? I mean, I know you have been seeing Richard, but I haven't talked to you much. Anything exciting going on? No, not much. Singer's been driving me nuts, but that's about it. Singer? What's he been doing? Julie filled him in on Singer's recent behavior, and Mike laughed. Maybe he needs some Prozac or something. Who knows? But if he doesn't stop, I'm going to buy an outdoor dog house. You should have buy one long time because dog to stay outdoors. Listen, I'd be glad to take him off your hands anytime. I'll take him to the beach, and by the time he gets home, he'll be exhausted. He won't have the energy to growl or bark or follow you around for the rest of the day. I might just take you up on that. I hope so. I love the big guy. He reached out to Singer. Don't I now, you little spooky doo? Singer received Mike's affection with a friendly bark. So any any good Andrea stories lately? Mike asked. Andrea was a frequent topic of conversation between them. She told me about her date on Saturday. Mike's nose wrinkled. The guy she was with was at the guy she was with at the Clipper. You saw him? Yeah, he was one ugly dude. Had a gold tooth and everything. I thought she had hit the low mark with that guy with the patch, but I guess I was wrong. Julie laughed. I wish I'd seen him. Mabel said exactly the same thing. She then launched into a description of the things Andrea had said about Cobra. Mike particularly enjoyed the whole Ed DeBona thing, though they that part, though why they part bothered Andrea and his other flaws didn't was beyond me. By the end, Julie was laughing too. What's with her anyway? Mike asked. Can't she see what everyone else sees? I almost feel sorry for her. At least you don't have to work with her. Although, to be honest, it does keep things entertaining around the salon. I'll bet. Oh, and by the way, Emma wanted me to tell you to give her a call. At least that's what Henry said. Will do. Do you know what it's about? No. Not really. Probably wants to give you a new receipt or whatever it is you two talk about. We don't talk about receipts. We talk about good stuff. In other words, you gossip. It's not gossip, she protested. It's called keeping in touch. Well, listen, if you hear anything good, give me a ring, okay? I'll be in all night, and maybe we can set something up so I could get Singer off your hands, at least for a little while. Maybe this weekend? Julie smiled. You got it. I'm glad I got that, Mike thought, feeling rather pleased with himself. Okay, so it wasn't exactly the most highbrow or intimidating conversation, but it did reassure him that Julie still enjoyed talking to him. They had joked around, they had laughed together, and that counted for something, didn't it? Of course it did. He had played it just right, kept the conversation light, avoided anything touchy, and best of all, he felt confident that they'd probably talk again later, after he had spoken to Emma. Emma always said something wrong, repeat something. Emma always said something wrong, and she always said something that's worth repeating. And if on the odd chance she didn't, the whole, I'd be glad to keep with, I'd be glad to help with Singer. I'd be glad to help with Singer. She would just keep repeating it over and over again. That thing was practically a guarantee that Julie would call. He refused to think about Richard every time his image, or that of Richard and Julie together, or even the stupid locket, popped into his head. He forced the thought away. Richard might have the inside track, but Mike wasn't about to let that spoil his thoughts of Julie right now. Well, that's somebody not go do what they do to their mother every night and come off on my page. Anyway, let us continue. Let us continue. He refused to think about Richard every time his image, or that of Richard and Julie together, or even the stupid locket, popped into his head. He forced the thought away. Richard might have the inside track, but Mike wasn't about to let that spoil his thoughts of Julie right now. And for the most part, his strategy worked fairly well. Mike's good Mike's good mood lasted through the rest of his work, the trip home, and even dinner. In fact, it lasted right up until he was lying in bed watching the evening news. The phone, he realized sadly, hadn't rung at all. Okie dokie. For Mike, the rest of the week passed torturously. Oh my God, poor Mike. Julie didn't call, nor did she swing by to shop, nor did she swing by the shop to say hello. Though he could have called her, though he had never hesitated picking up the phone to talk to her in the past, he just wasn't up to it. For all he knew, she hadn't called because she was with Richard, and he couldn't face the prospect of reaching her at home only to have her explain that she couldn't talk right now because she had company, or because she was getting ready to head out, or because she was right in the middle of something. And if by chance she wasn't in, he knew he'd spend the rest of the night wondering where she had gone and wouldn't sleep a wink. Not only not only didn't Julie call that week, not only did not only did Richard show up every single day and probably at night too, but on Friday, Mike saw Julie leave the salon in the mid afternoon. Though he didn't know where she was going, he was pretty certain he knew why she was leaving early. Richard, he thought. He tried not to care. He took himself there. He told himself there was no reason to care. Why should he care what they were doing? His night was already planned. He had beer in the fridge, a video store around the corner, and a Domino's pizza just 30 minutes away. He would have himself a good time. No, a great time. Kick back on the couch and unwind from the week. Maybe play a few tunes before popping the video in. Stay up all night if he wanted. For a moment he imagined how it would go, and then his shoulders sagged. I'm pathetic, he thought. My life could send my life could send healthy people into comas. But what really toppled the wedding cake, so to speak, was that despite his determination not to care, he found out where Richard and Julie had gone. Not from her. Instead, he found out about it from people he barely knew, in bits and pieces, overheard here and there, around town, at the grocery store, at the diner, and even while working in the garage. Suddenly, it seemed that even casual acquaintances of Julie's, people she had happened to visit with for a few minutes on Sunday afternoon, knew a lot more than he did. By Monday morning, it told him almost by Monday morning, it took him almost 20 minutes to summon the energy to get out of bed. Oh, you're having a headache. Oh, I hope you feel better, love. Take you something for it. Richard, it seemed, had picked Julie up in a limousine that had been stocked with champagne. They had gone to rally for dinner. Afterward, at the Civic Center in front row seats, they had watched the live performance of Phantom of the Opera. If that wasn't enough, if that wasn't quite special enough to impress her, it turned out that Richard and Julie had spent Saturday night together as well, down near Wilmington. There, they had taken a hot air balloon ride before picnicking at the beach. How the hell was he supposed to compete with a guy who did these things? How was he supposed to compete with a guy who was able to take Julie in a limousine and buy her a gold locket and take her out to fancy places and to the opera? Poor Mike. Mike is having a hard time. There is a great competition on his hand, and he does not know how to deal with it. I I am wondering if Richard is going all the way out because he's trying to cover up something. You know, sometimes when you meet somebody and they go so hard in the first, it's because they want to capture you fast. You know, they want to make you love them quickly. They want to show you like what they can do with you, for you, and to you. And then once they get to pop that bubble, it's all downhill from there. Who knows? But I'm not going to be the pessimist here. I'm not going to rain on Julie's parade. I wish her the best. I wish her the best. And I hope that Richard is good for her. And if he's not, she will find out quickly and run like how Miss Kitty run from come on, whatever is that guy's name. I hope and run quick, fast, and in a hurry and go find her true love. All right. That's where we are going to end the reading for tonight, my friends. I want to say thanks to everybody who came into the live. Thanks to you all. I sincerely appreciate each and every one of you who have come into the live. Those of you who are new here, I want to say thank you so much for stopping by. Don't forget to hit the like button. All my travelers who have been here with me from day uno, I sincerely appreciate you all. We have been riding together. We will be dying together. Yeah, We are each other's ride and die. And I don't care when new people come. And I may tell you, new people, when you're not coming in my life, you have a choice to scroll, You do not stop and comment. Negative comments. Keep going. Me not see and me don't want to see keep going. All right. All right. And that is, my black finger, my black trigger is always happy. All right. To get rid of But anywho, that is where we are going to end the live for tonight, my friends. Thanks again to everybody who came in. I sincerely appreciate you all. Liz, I hope you feel better. I hope you feel better. And Mike, I hope you get your act together soon. I'm just messing with you. And everybody else who came into the chat, the amazing M&G and OG, AG, AG the boner. Be safe on those streets, AG the boner. Card and Joe and Andrea, Letitia, Winsome, and everybody else who came into the live, everybody else who stopped by, everybody who listened but say not a word. Like my friend tell me, oh, Trevor, I'm always listening to you read. I just sit there and just listen and listen, but I never say a thing. And I said, girl, why you never say anything in the chat? You say, I just don't say anything. I just listen to you all the time. I'm like, okay, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I do that too sometimes. Sometimes I'm listening to somebody on their live and I don't say anything, either because I'm driving or I'm doing something else on another device. So I don't have time. So I understand. I definitely understand. But once again, I want to say thanks to you all for coming in. Thanks everybody for listening. I hope you all are enjoying this book called The Guardian as much as I am enjoying reading it for us. We will come back tomorrow morning. Yes, we will come back tomorrow morning when we will be reading the Bible first thing in the morning. And then we will be reading this book again sometime again tomorrow. All right. Have yourselves a great night, everybody. Go ahead and do what you do. And when we meet up tomorrow, it will be another day to begin with lots of love, light, laughter, and happiness. Have a good night, everybody. Until next time, this is Trev from Trevessence, where your journey matters.